Hello everyone, and we are excited to be back with Beyond the Noise, where we do everything we can to get past the surface conversation and the rhetoric so we can get into the information that everybody needs to know and many don't like to talk about. Because I have learned, and I'm going to talk about my guest today, but I have learned that when people don't agree with truth, they respectfully disagree with your opinion, even though you don't give your opinion. So today, we're going to give a lot of truth, wrapped in a lot of opinion, wrapped in a lot of jokes. I also have with me today the round-faced Mexican girl, Young Grace. So what's going on? How you doing today?
I'm okay. I've had better days. Both my teams did not do good yesterday, so I'm not happy about that.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, the Frogs won this weekend, and shout out to all the Frogs. Yeah, I'm never going to let that go. And we have a big OU fan in the house, and they had a little bit of a problem. But today, I'm really excited about today's guest.
Before we get started, we also need to mention that
don't do it.
Richland beat Haltom 36-3. I went to Richland. So.
Right on. And round-faced Mexican girl went to Haltom.
I know.
Yeah. Shout out to Richland.
Okay.
Hey, today I'm really excited. We have a good friend of mine. He's always on the show. He's always making comments. And I found out that on Facebook, people don't like us together. We may have friends apart, but when we have conversations together, people like to pile on. And that's okay. But Mr. Eric Little. Eric is from southeastern Louisiana.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. I screwed that all up. Southeastern Oklahoma. And then he found his way out here to DFW in 8th grade. Cross-country athlete, and decided that running was too much, so he go run some more in the Marines. He also did 6 years in the Marines. He's back in the DFW with a beautiful family. He has a company, Crimson Builders, who is a construction company that builds almost everything I've seen in Metroplex. He's an awesome guy. And in 2018, Grace? So Eric won the PE Citizen of the Year award. So for all of you people who don't like his smart ass mouth, we have with you one of my really good friends and a really great dude, Mr. Eric Little. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, man?
Hey, man. Good to see you. We talk all the time. We just wanted to put it on air, so let's get to it.
Well, before we get started, I just want everybody to know that this was your idea.
So it's going to be a lot of disclaimers. On the way in, Eric was, Eric started a lot of sentences. Just so you know, this is your idea. Hey, just so you know, we're going to talk about whatever. Hey, just so you know, I don't want to get nobody, protesting out front of the building. Just so you know. So, Eric, talk to me about you coming up, man. You from backwoods, Oklahoma. Coming out of Oklahoma, how'd you get? What got you to the Metroplex?
Man, I grew up in a real small town in southeastern Oklahoma called Clayton. There was about 700 people there and 2 cats. I saw my first traffic light when I was, 7 years old.
Yeah.
We grew up sticks,
Yeah.
And the town that we grew up in was really poor, extremely poor. Like most of those small towns in southeastern Oklahoma, they made most of their money on pulpwood, which is like cutting logs down and hauling them.
So they had a paper mill.
Well, they didn't even have a paper mill. They had a train station that loaded the logs up and took it.
Oh, took it to the paper mill because Picayune had paper mill.
Right. Yeah, y'all were rich. So we were poor. My dad was an alcoholic, an abusive alcoholic, and so we were the poor family in a poor town. My dad, he was a pretty smart guy, but he drank everything away, and so we suffered greatly of that. And how we ended up, my parents got divorced when I was 8 years old. I stayed with my dad, and we were homeless for several years. We lived in a tent at Folsom State Park in California. We lived in cars. Kind of grew up on the streets a little bit. Moved back. The state of California came in and told my dad that either they were going to put me in foster care or he had to take me back to my mom. And so I ended up living with my mom on low-income family housing in Lawton, Oklahoma. So.
How old were you when you were going through these transitions that seemed like a normal way of life for you?
Yeah.
How old were you?
I was 8 when my parents got divorced. My dad started dealing cocaine. So he was importing cocaine into southeastern Oklahoma and marijuana. And so, he started getting into those kind of things, and that's where we ended up fleeing to California, and so that was from 8 years old all the way up to 12 years old.
And you live. You didn't just see this. You lived it.
Oh yeah, I lived it.
At 8, between 8 and 12, did you have an understanding of what you were seeing?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
What did you feel like? Did you feel like it was the way, or like how did you feel? Because I really can't comprehend what you're talking about.
Well, it's when you think back on it, what you feel is fear and constant insecurity. Because you talk about, you see these TV advertisements about kids not having food, stuff like that. Well, that's the way it was. We didn't know if we were going to eat that day or not. When we didn't know if my dad was going to go spend our food money on beer or
whatever.
Yeah, whatever he was going to put in his body.
Yeah.
And I hated him for that. And until I became an adult and I started understanding the pressures that you have on yourself, especially my dad was very successful when he was young. He had a construction company in Oklahoma.
Really?
He ran, he owned a bar, he owned a couple of restaurants, and then when he was about 25, everything just crashed. And he lost everything. And so now that I've gotten older, I started understanding these kind of pressures of adulthood, and you really can make a decision to destroy your life in a heartbeat if you choose to. Okay. And he chose to.
Wow. So
he had a construction company. Why would you choose to start a business in that similar faction, I guess?
Because I'm stupid.
Or you're good at it,
It runs in our family. My dad was a framer, so he framed houses up in Oklahoma, and that's what his construction company was.
Did you ever went with him?
Oh yeah.
So you saw it, you understood how to go about it.
It just makes sense.
Did you like it? Or was it an outlet? Like, what was it for you when you were there?
Well,
when you were doing it?
I never had a dream of working in construction. It was, I could tell you that it's a long story how I ended up doing this. It's really kind of funny. I got out of the Marine Corps and I was on terminal leave. I don't know if you guys know what that is. You have leave stored up. I had 90 days because I was constantly deployed. I was in for 6 years. I was deployed all over the place.
So you've seen every part of the world.
Unfortunately, yeah. And that's why the only time I've left the United States since I got out 20-ish years ago was we went on a cruise. That's the only time I left the U.S. I'm not going outside.
Yeah.
The Disney cruise, right?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. But you were terminal leave was
terminal leave means that if you have however many days you have stored up of leave that you didn't use, once you get to your end date of your contract, you get out. You're still technically on active duty, but you never have to come back.
Gotcha.
And so I came home on terminal leave. I had just been through a divorce. I got married like an idiot, like every other military guy does. And then I was never home.
Right.
And so I came back to Texas because I had nothing. She sold all my car, our condo, the whole 9 yards. Came back with a set of golf clubs and one bag of clothes.
So for the majority of your young life, people have given you every reason not to like or trust people.
Yeah, and that's why I don't.
And the people closest to you, the people closest to you have said, you know what, I'm going to find out how terrible I can treat this cat.
Right. Well, I've also had a lot of people that have treated me really well, too. Right. And so I try, like I said, you can dwell on that kind of stuff, and it can destroy you. It can make you angry at life. Some of the stuff that I've seen around the world, it could drive you to really hate human beings.
So how do you have a moniker, and I mean this, like how do you have a moniker of calm, not just sanity, just because sanity is, but just being calm in situations when you've seen so many different outcomes that can go left on you or for you?
I don't know that I'm always calm. The only thing that keeps me kind of calm is nobody's shooting at me.
Which brings me to this point. So you coming out of your younger years and enduring the things, I don't want to say trauma, but enduring all of the things that you had to endure, going into adulthood, what did that look like coming out of the military, coming out of the Marines?
Well, I guess I have to kind of start with going into the military. Okay. Coming out of college, I was pretty liberal, very pro-choice, very kind of left-wing. First person I ever voted for was Bill Clinton, and then I went into the Marine Corps, and I started seeing real life, and so it started shaping me into shifting away from liberal policies and liberal politics and supporting liberal politicians, and I started really kind of supporting the people I saw that supported people like me.
Got it. That makes sense. Yeah.
We went through a time when Clinton was president where there was a shutdown of the government, and we didn't get paid for like 4 months. And that was like the shift for me in my mind. It's like they don't care about the military. They're using us as political pawns, and I was young. And so that's kind of what shifted me over hardcore into the Republican side.
And right now, the way you see the world through a different set of eyes, or through a set of eyes outside of politics, and you're watching the way politics operate now, what are your thoughts before we get into just the minutia of what we're talking about? What are your thoughts with the conservative party now, and the way they're going about the political realm?
What they say is most people, the older you get, the more conservative you get. And for me, it's been kind of a full circle thing. I'm not necessarily a liberal, but I am definitely a libertarian.
What is that? What does that mean?
Libertarians believe in liberty. We believe that if you want to go smoke marijuana and you're not hurting anybody else, go smoke marijuana. There's no reason for us to spend millions and millions of dollars to incarcerate people to do something that's no worse than drinking a beer.
Okay.
Right? You believe that government isn't the answer. It's most of the time it's the problem. And more freedom for people to live their life the way that they want to live, to pursue the happiness. And most of the time, what we're seeing, and especially like today, with most of the problems, is it's caused by government.
Okay.
Right?
What do you mean?
Well, like we see what's going on right now with people being killed by the police. These police are being a lot of times they're being protected. I mean, and I love police. Okay, I'm a law and order kind of guy. I'm a former Marine. I know as a business person that the best way and the best system that we can have for our economy to provide jobs for people and to make money is to have stability. And without police doing their jobs, you cannot have stability. So the defund police movement to me is idiocy.
I agree with that, and I'm going to take it a step further. It just, the fact that we have to qualify that we either are for or against the police is the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Because for me, it's not the policeman. I know 20 policemen.
Right.
Some I went to school with, some I had conversations with. I know them specifically.
Right.
So the problem is not the policeman. The problem is the injustice that police inflict on people and not having consequences. I think that...
Well, anytime you set up a system where you take away the fear of a consequence, you're going to have...
suggestions.
You're going to have things like that happen. When you have a system where people are taught to protect even the worst among them, then you're going to have the worst among them do these kind of things. It's not rocket science, right? And so when you empower people, especially within that organization, to confront the worst among them, and not only empower them to do it, but you encourage them to do it.
That's
right. And you have this thin blue line that's amongst police to where anybody who does go out and confront this kind of stuff, they're ostracized.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like the moment you stand up for what you believe is morally right, you get buried by the protection of the color or the blue or your teammate or your homeboy. It's like having homeboys,
right. And it's like that. It's not just like that in the police department.
Right.
It's like that in corporate America as well. Especially when your only goal is to protect the company. Then you create a system and an atmosphere and a culture where you allow bad things to happen, and then they have to be covered up because the goal isn't to do what's right; it's to protect the company.
The asset, yeah.
Right, and so the police department a lot of police departments have fallen into that same thing.
Wow. So with that, and then you're coming out of, and that's fantastic. So you come out of the military, and it's a full 180 shift.
Hardcore.
And that's based on your experience, not on anything somebody told you, or not somebody falling out the sky and making promises that they can't keep. But your life experience that says, I've been fighting for this country for 6 years, and now you're gonna not pay me for 4 months because the people
it goes beyond that.
Okay.
Right. There were things that were happening politically within the country. When the Monica Lewinsky thing happened, all of a sudden, 2 days later, I get deployed to Saudi Arabia.
So funny that things happen suddenly every time somebody gets in trouble, ain't it?
And so, to me, that was my only experience with that happening. And so I thought that Bill Clinton was an awful human being for doing that. Now, when I go back and I look at history, it's like,
that's just what happens.
Yeah, that's what happens. I mean, have you guys ever heard of Smedley Butler?
No.
You never heard of Smedley Butler?
But you gonna tell us.
Smedley Butler was a lieutenant general in the United States Marine Corps. He's one of 2 Marines that have won the Medal of Honor twice for 2 separate actions. The bases in Okinawa, Japan are named after Smedley Butler, Camp Butler. Well, when he finally retired, he became an anti-war protester, which blew everybody away because this man killed more people than smallpox, right?
Wow.
And so what he said is that all of these wars, when he won the Medal of Honor, he got sent into these wars not to protect the United States or protect your freedoms or anything like that. He was going in to protect corporate interests.
I want you to say that again. I want you to make it clear, because I'm going to ask questions about things that we as Americans get behind that we don't really understand. But you just said something that I think a very high percentage of us had no understanding of. So we love the ideals of American freedom, and you got to fight for freedom and fight, but they were going out there to protect the dollar, the common interests of corporates, gold, diamonds, oil. They was out there plundering, basically.
What's funny to me is when people say that and people get shocked by that kind of a statement, like, well, what do you think we do?
Yeah, we pilots.
What do you think? I mean, I would never ever in a million years try to bash the U.S. military because I'm a Marine all the way through, but I understand what it's all about. And so for me, it's not about being, anti-patriotic or being left-wing or being a liberal or anything like that. I'm a libertarian. Right-wing is probably as you get. And Second Amendment all the way. I own more guns than most police departments, as you know.
Yep.
And I know how to use them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to me, it's like, let's just be honest.
Yeah.
Right? I support the police, but why can't I be honest with what's wrong? Right? I support the military, but why can't I say the reason that we go into most of these countries? Right?
Well, I'm gonna ask you that, and we're here with Eric Little, good friend of mine, owner of Crimson Builders. Part of the reason why you can't is because you are white and you were in the military and you have a business, so it is automatically assumed that based on your past that you worked hard, you got to the American dream, and now life is golden. We kind of forget we still got to wake up every day.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about white privilege.
Okay.
You just explained to a T that there was nothing privileged about your upbringing.
No, not at all.
So would you say that that white privilege, the way it is defined, is something that you have been had the opportunity to experience positively, or is it real, or are you using your life's upbringing as a reason why you weren't privileged?
Now we're going to get to the part where you start getting in trouble.
Yeah, I know. I'm just gonna give it
like it nice
is.
While it lasted.
Yeah, we're doing our best. So, but what do you think about that comment? Honestly?
I honestly, if I had to compare it to something, it's almost like registered sex offenders, right? What we've done with the registered sex offender laws is that we've made it so broad that so many people have had to register that as a parent, when I look up sex offenders in my neighborhood, I really don't know who's in actual danger to my kids and who isn't. They've watered it down to the point where it means nothing.
Right.
So I think the same thing has happened with white privilege, right? It's been thrown out there so much and used as a hammer to hit white people every time they have an opinion that might be different than the woke leftist opinion of what's going on in the United States, that it's only because of your white privilege, right? And then white people like me that grew up dirt poor, they look at it and go, what privilege are you talking about?
Right.
What the hell are you talking about? That's crazy. I have never had privilege in my life, but if I have to be honest, which is what I told you I was going to be,
true.
I've been in situations where the color of my skin has gotten me treated differently than somebody who was with me who didn't look like me.
Right. You got treated way better than the black dude that was standing next to you. That's basically what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. By authorities.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's when people actually say white privilege, this is what it means. It means that regardless of how you came up, regardless of whether you was a trust fund baby or a shoebox baby, that the starting line is not the same. And the moment people of color get ahead, they move the line. What it means is you and I could have the same situation, same credit score, and my loan is going to be different than yours, and that's what historical data says. You're going to pay 3.25%, I'm going to pay 9.75%.
Right.
Because I am black. That's white privilege. I just found out today that construction of generational wealth is a real thing. That's called white privilege. We like to think that we worked for everything in America, but if you were a trust fund baby, you didn't work for anything. You woke up into a generational wealth situation. Well, that's the privilege, because it's easy to say, well, you need to go educate yourself, you need to go do that. Well, we weren't able to read. It was against the law to read. So let's fast forward. Well, you can read today. Well, guess what? It's a 400-year head start.
Right.
And every time there's a new thing, we have to get understanding. And the privilege comes from, okay, we're going to start you at this line, and if you commit the same situations, you'll be treated differently, negatively, because you are black. If we're going somewhere, you're driving, because I know if we get stopped, we are gonna make it home.
Right.
That's the privilege.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
You know,
and you'd have to be stupid to say that doesn't exist.
or you have to have not experienced it.
Yeah.
You know, because, and I want to talk about this. People have called you racist.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel, honestly?
Oh, it pissed me off.
It makes you angry.
Yeah, it was anger.
Why is it?
Well, because, like I've told you before, 99% of white people that you'll ever run into, the number one fear that they have is being labeled as a racist. And at the same time, you will rarely ever meet a white person that will admit to being a racist. They can be standing in front of you wearing their Ku Klux Klan outfit, and they will tell you straight up that they're not a racist.
It's heritage, baby.
They're celebrating their heritage, right? And so that's a true story.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I went to Richland High School, right? We were the last school in the state of Texas that had the rebel flag. I ran track and cross country, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was horrified. You know, we would go down like the Texas relays, and there's 60,000 people in the stands, and there's 12 white guys, and 8 of us are walking around wearing rebel flags on the front of our uniform.
And because that's the school.
That's the school. I was like, I had nothing to do with this. I didn't pick this, right? And so I was horrified. And finally, after all this time, you know, Richland finally changed it. And there were so many people that were angry and upset about it. I'm like, and why would you want to put these kids through that?
Because they're not racist. I mean, I'm a big...
No, they're not racist.
Yeah.
You know, it was just Johnny Reb and a Confederate
It's
flag
just
and
Confederate
Dixie
flag.
Bells, and Dixie was our school song, you know. There was nothing racist about it. What are you talking about?
Except all of it. But
No, I'm just saying, we're all
yeah.
sitting around singing Dixie and flying rebel flags, and nobody ever saw a problem with that. I mean, not only that people got upset that it was being taken away. Well, that's not what it was about. What do you think it's about?
Wow. So as you see this, and you're being called racist, which we all know that's
well, let's
not
go into why
accurate.
I was called a racist.
Yeah, I'm finna say, as you see this, and we know that's not what it's about. Why would you even catch that label? Like, that's exactly what I was going.
It's real simple, and just like I said with the sex offender stuff, is that we've watered the word racist down to the point where nobody really even understands what it means. Right. And so it's used as a political tool to make people shut up. Right, because the second you're labeled a racist, most white people back off.
You got to back off.
Nothing. Yeah, I don't want, and I'm not like that. I don't have that bone in my body.
No, sir, you're not.
I mean, I strike back. And go, how dare you even? You don't know anything about me. You know, you insane. You know, I'm the furthest thing there is from a racist to my mind. But then I step back and go, well, wait a second. Just like I said, there's white people standing in front of you wearing a Klan. And maybe there is something.
Maybe I need to step back and look.
But it means a lot less to me when it's coming from another white person.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow. Do you think it comes from a lack of understanding or a lack of compassion? For example, the entire world watched George Floyd get murdered. I don't care who you are, what you think. We all know it was wrong. But what I realized is we will justify actions to protect ideals without standards.
Well, because we want to protect what we think is real. Right? Because if it's not real, then that destroys like the very fabric that we build our lives on. And so the second that we're shown something that's different than what we thought it was, I mean, it destroys our reality. And so that's the reason why people will cling to that kind of stuff, right? Like they're going to find any reason why this wasn't wrong. Right. Well, George Floyd actually didn't even die from asphyxiation, right? He didn't die from the guy's knee on.
He didn't die from being choked to death.
Yeah, he died. He died from fentanyl overdose.
Yeah, which is hilariously terrible for me. You know,
Right.
I get it.
Right, and so we're gonna cling on to those kind of things, and then on the other side of the aisle, you have the exact same thing. Every incident that you ever have where a black man is killed by police or arrested or beat up by the police, every single one of those incidents is because of race. Right? Because it confirms what your reality is. Your reality tells you that the system's completely out to get you, and that anything that you do is going to be destroyed. Right?
Well, you said something about the system and why, some poor white people, hang on to those deals or those ideals because they feel like they're victims. Explain that, because I've never heard it put that way.
My dad, my mom is absolutely not, is the least racist human being. She raised us to care about human beings, not about
humanity,
and any of that kind of stuff. And it wasn't for her, I never would have had a chance to get beyond all that stuff, right? My mom accepted everybody. Like when I first started going to church, nobody in my family went to church. Okay, my dad was a Jehovah's Witness every December. Yeah, I mean he was devout Jehovah's Witness every time Christmas rolled. So, but my mom was one of these people like. That's the truth. Like I said, if I'm going to get on here, I'm going to tell the truth.
Say it like it is, yeah.
Well, like I had a cousin that decided he wanted to be a girl, right? And everybody in our family rejected him and threw him out, wouldn't have anything to do with him. Well,
all the good Christian folks.
Oh yeah, well they weren't Christians, but
okay.
They're regular human
at
beings.
least I can appreciate that.
Yeah. But I was talking to some of the people I went to church with, and they go, "Yeah, we never let him around." I'm thinking
those good Christian folks.
Yeah, my mom lets this guy into our house and takes care of him and lets him stay there and all of these kind of things, right? And it's like that was my mom's kind of open-mindedness towards people who look different and victims of society. Well, my dad on the other side had the same mentality, except it was the other side of the coin, right? He believed that the reason that his life was bad, and the reason it wasn't because of the bad choices he made. It wasn't about him choosing alcohol over food or taking care of his kids or getting high. It was because black people were getting a leg up that was given to them by the government. Affirmative
action is the worst thing on the planet.
Yeah, and it was. Yeah. That's the a reason. I don't. Like you said, this is Ask a White Dude. I'm a white dude. I'm not the white dude. Right. I'm just one guy with one perspective here, and my perspective of that is that. The reason why a lot of people I saw and there are a lot of really good people in that part of the world, but to them it's competition, it's economic competition, right? And they're competing with black folks for jobs, for food, for these kind of things. And so if they don't, everybody's got to have a reason why they're not successful, and it's never because of them, right? It's because of some boogeyman,
right? Yeah. And I always say, closing your eyes don't make the boogeyman go away. Say it all the time. Oh man, we are here with Eric Little. Great. So what you got online today? Anybody got comments, questions, or concerns?
I think they're just intently listening right now.
Oh wow.
Or they're not listening at all. We done ran everybody off.
We have 8 viewers at the moment.
We done ran people off. But I will say, and let me say this. I will ask with that if we're going to talk about instances. I want to talk about the attitude towards commanders in chief.
Yeah.
So. I'm a big Barack Obama fan.
I'm not.
I know, but it's not because of policies.
Right.
And I'm going to say this, like the way universal health care was put together, was not a fan at all, simply because it literally took my health care out of my pocket and threw it in the trash can. But I am a Barack Obama fan because he is extremely intelligent. He is the thing that young black people can look at and be like, man, when we used to say you can be anything you want to be, you see that dude right there with the law degree, and he can hoop, and he real slick, and he says hello to everybody, including the general. He treats people with respect and dignity, and people shake his hand and love him. That's how you want to be. Because he had a standard of morality, regardless of policy, regardless of what he did government-wise, but he was really into helping people. So I don't care how you feel about
and to me,
LGBT.
And to me, sometimes the people who are the ones who really have an idea of helping people are sometimes the worst human beings to deal with.
Yeah, they are, because you try to help everybody.
I don't want your help. Just get out of my way,
just slide by. Yeah. But we're talking about as a person, like morality.
No, of course.
Yeah,
as a human being.
Yeah, we're talking about the standard of what you're looking for in a leader.
As a human being, you're absolutely right. I mean, I can't really say anything negative about him as a person.
And he was called the Antichrist.
Oh yeah, he was called all kinds of stuff.
Now we got a gentleman who has been disrespectful to everybody. We just start naming. We're talking about women. We're talking about young women. We're talking about old war vets. We're talking about current war vets. We're talking about his own opponents. statements that have been made. But I'm going to go to one that a lot of people don't. This was the one that did it for me. When those 5 kids went to jail, and people can say what they want, but he made a Twitter comment, and usually I'm great at quotes, but he made it clear that those 5 kids should be executed, and they were innocent.
I'm not sure what you're talking about. Sorry.
The Central Park 5, the kids that were accused of raping that kid in the park, and then they had the whole show about it on. But years ago, before he was president, he demanded that those kids were to be executed, and they were innocent. And then he turns around and he watches guilty people do guilty things, and it's excused or passed over. But even beyond that, I was taught that leaders are supposed to do 2 things: take responsibility for their own actions, and to be able to have a plan and command in the time that's necessary. I've yet to see a plan, and I've seen a whole lot of disrespect in the morality. And he has been called a savior. Help me understand that whole concept and thought process.
Well, like I said, anytime you're walking into a situation, your inherent bias, what's guiding you inside, is going to guide the way that you view this. Your reality is going to guide how you see something, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, my right-leaning side walks in and sees Barack Obama, and I see the same things that you're describing Donald Trump, right? I see him. He basically told Donald Trump, "You'll never be president," and drops the mic and walks off. It was a pretty disrespectful comment to make, but it was funny.
Yeah.
But on the surface, it was pretty disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
We see the federal government being weaponized against political opponents, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have Fast and Furious, where we sold guns to Mexican cartels that ended up killing Americans.
That's been happening for that. Yeah,
no, I mean, but
yeah, I know. Yeah, that was that. Yeah, that happened.
Yeah,
I know.
we can't
act like it didn't happen. Yeah,
and to say that,
yeah,
that he was some kind of a savior without examining all the faults that he had,
right,
is wrong. Benghazi.
Yeah.
You can't ignore Benghazi.
No doubt. Those things, like I said.
But the reality of Benghazi was that nobody ever talks about is that he was there. Do you know why Christopher Stevens? You know what I did in the Marine Corps?
Now you about to tell me though.
No. Yeah. I was a legal services specialist, and then I was an intel guy, right?
Mm.
So what happened in Benghazi? Benghazi was a port, right? They were gathering up weapons from the Libyan government that were and they were, guess where they were selling these weapons? What do you think Christopher Stevens was doing in Benghazi?
Yeah, flipping them. Turn them
Who
right back
were they
around.
selling?
They was flipping them right back.
Yeah, they were selling them into Syria.
They were flipping them right back.
To the anti-Syrian government, who ended up being who? It ended up being ISIS.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's where ISIS was getting all their weapons, was out of Libya.
But that also, when we're talking about that, even the administration before had contracts.
Oh, absolutely.
With the Iraqis, and that they written contracts with the president's signature at the bottom of it.
Right.
So we know those things happen.
Yeah, no,
you know what I'm saying.
You're proving my point.
Yeah, we're saying the same thing.
We're asking how people can excuse that kind of stuff is because they see it on the other side, and then all of a sudden, well, if it's okay for them to do it, then it's okay for me to support Donald Trump because he's right wing and not left wing.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and so
he's the thing that I am not against.
Yeah.
I got it. I got what you're saying. But even with that, let's just, like I said, policies aside, just the morality. I'm a big believer in if you're gonna be a bad guy, at least plan to be one.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's the thing that a lot of folks, not just white people, right? Donald Trump's probably going to end up getting a bigger percentage of the black vote than any Republican in a long, long time.
So he'll get about 6%. But
No, it might be.
I'm messing with you. I know.
I'd be shocked. It might be closer to 20%.
You know what? I won't be shocked. You want to know why? Because the gentleman that just got shot the other day, who was actually being a good citizen and assisting, and had his hands up and got shot, believed with his whole heart that was a fallacy.
Yeah.
That officers, and look at his post, look at his back. He was a great dude. I have nothing from what I've read, from what I've seen. He was not deserving of any of those actions. So my question, since we're leading into that, now that we know that and we're looking at these things, it's going to be hard to justify the actions against him.
Here's the thing with Donald Trump that you have to understand and why people like him, is he doesn't pretend to be moral.
That's even worse.
I know for some people it's not. It's like all of these politicians pretend like they're really good, and then you find them having sex with a little boy in a bathroom of an airport, right?
That's terrible.
Yeah.
And you know what?
You don't want to get caught with a dead girl or a live boy?
Right. But here's the problem with all of it. We're still allowing all of it.
Oh yeah.
So on the forefront, if we allow it on the surface, then it's then what's being allowed under the surface is.
But your question is how do people support
exactly?
That?
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Is there like, you know what, all of these? Why don't we just go ahead and have a guy who doesn't pretend like he's like that? He is what he is. But you know that he doesn't sugarcoat anything that he says.
That's called a talk show host.
Oh yeah, of course. And what are we today? What is the United States?
One big talk show.
Yeah, everybody has a podcast.
Everybody. That's what I'm saying. He's a talk show host. Everybody has. So I should run for president.
Yeah.
You know.
You should.
I might.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I wouldn't be able to run under any 2 or 3 party ticket. It was just I'm common folk. I'm running under the common folk ticket.
Well, I'd be your vice president.
Yeah, we get assassinated. But so what do we think is we know what's important in America. Mm-hmm. We understand the disconnect. Well, we understand the disconnect. How do we, this generation, who honestly, we talked about this, our generation has not endured anything our parents or our grandparents endured, and have not received the gifts or the opportunity to not have to worry about those things with the generations that coming behind us. I say we're the middle child. Like we were the beginning of interracial relationships being accepted. We were at the beginning of gay marriages or gay relationships being accepted. We were the beginning of those things. So we didn't, our problems with prejudice and racism came with whispers and smirks and smart, elegant remarks. It wasn't written into law, or it wasn't moving out of a movement.
It wasn't truly systematic.
Right, it wasn't truly systemic. So when we watch these things, it is a shock, because we do have black friends and we do have police officers as friends. How do we get past that, Eric? How do we step into an honest moment for the people, like for our kids and for our kids' kids, and say, hey, listen, I don't care who we're following, both of them, I don't know if they're the best thing for the morality of what we're trying to get accomplished.
Well, this is where we might start getting in trouble.
Okay.
So, to me, there's one way to do it.
Don't kill nobody.
Well, that's a good start, but that's kind of a given for some people. But the reality is that we actually have to have a real conversation about what's going on. As white people, we have to understand and see the reality of what's happening, what's happening with black folks and their interactions with police, and we have to acknowledge that these things are happening. I can do that because I've seen it. And when the first time I saw it, I was absolutely 100% shocked. I bought a building that's our headquarters now in North Richland Hills, and I closed on it that day. Right, I had the key in my hand. I just spent, almost $3 million.
To get it together. Yeah.
And one of my best friends in the world, his name is D-Ray. He's 6'5". I mean, he is a big dude. Yeah. And he's black.
Yeah, and he's hilarious too. That's my
he's
guy. Shout out to D-Ray.
Yeah. Well, he's got cornrows, so
Yeah, he does.
He's so cool.
He is. But we go in, and I didn't know there was an alarm on this building. And I set the alarm off, and I didn't have the code, and I'm trying to get a hold of the property manager, and all of a sudden, North Richland Hills Finest pull up, and I look like I just got through mowing the yard, right? I mean, I went home, I changed, and I came up there, and D-Ray met me up there at the building, and
because you called him, because that's your homeboy. You wanted him to come check it out with you.
See this. I didn't think anything about it. And so the alarm's going off, and he's freaking out. And I'm like, what are you freaking out for? I own the building.
Yeah.
And so North Richland Hills Finest come up there, and I walk out, and I walk right up to him like, okay, well, hi, how you doing, guys? And their alarm's going off, and the guy's got his hand on his gun like this, and I'm not thinking anything about it. And the whole time I'm talking to them, I said, yeah, this is my building. I bought it. And they're like, you bought this building? I look like I just, like I said, I just got to working on my car or something.
Yeah.
And the cop, and these weren't white police officers, by the way, right?
Right.
The whole time D-Ray walks out, he sits on the front porch of this building with his hands out. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he goes, I ain't moving. That's what I'm doing. And I was like, I have no idea what's going on here. And the whole time I have a 380 pistol in my pocket.
In your pocket.
Yeah. And the cop the whole time is looking past me and staring at D-Ray, and I'm 2 feet from him. If I wanted to kill both of them, all I'd do is pull the gun out and shoot both of them, right? That's what I'm thinking. Like, and then finally, you know, they took my business card. They looked. I got a hold of the property manager, got the code, went and turned the alarm off. But
they were sizing him up. He was a threat.
They never even looked at me. They never looked at me.
What did he say? And that was common. It was common practice for him.
For D-Ray, it was like, okay, this is an everyday thing. For me, it was like shock. Why in the world would they be staring at you? I'm the guy that walked up to him like an idiot with my hands in my pockets, you know, with a gun in my hand.
All the things we're taught never to do.
Yeah.
That's the privilege.
Yep.
But the privilege is
not knowing.
The privilege is this. We got to look. You got to look at your kids and say, "Hey, listen. If you get stopped by the police for any reason, don't do this. Don't do that. Be sure you do this. Be sure you do this." But what if I didn't do anything? It don't matter. If you get stopped for
I disagree with you. That's not the privilege.
No, here's the privilege: is that conversation would only exist if it happened.
Right.
It always exists in our household because we know that stop could be the last day.
Yeah, but the privilege isn't that.
What would you think it is?
The privilege is that most middle class white people who aren't far right or far left never think about race. We don't walk around thinking about race. You want to know why? We don't have to. It doesn't come up. It's not part of our life. It's not part of our conversation for the most part. And so when all these kind of things start happening with riots and all of these things, we get really uncomfortable with it.
Because
really uncomfortable.
Because it's not a reality situation for you guys.
Yeah, it's not part of our culture. It's not something that we think about. You know, you see a lot of these movies. You know, like I actually. The funny thing was, Rhonda, my wife, was watching The Help.
Yeah.
And I watched the last part of The Help before I came over here, and I'm thinking, this is what people think that most white people are like, and maybe they were back then. Obviously, I didn't grow up back then.
Actually, my landlord, Tom Green, shout out to Tom. Tom will be on the show next month. Okay. But he's an older guy from Chicago, 74 years old. He said The Help is a reality for him. Yeah. They came over in those uniforms every day. He said that the black lady that took care of him when his mom would leave to go to work, she would walk for 2 miles to catch the bus, get the bus, walk for 2 more blocks to get him, take care of him, take the food back home that he left with, and then have to go take care of her kids. But he said that was a reality, like that the help situation really happened. So he said, just like you said, he never really thought nothing of it. He just thought that was a job, and she was real nice to him, and he was real nice to her, and that was that. But
that's the privilege.
Yeah, that is the privilege. That makes sense.
The privilege of not having to even think about race for the most part. It doesn't even come up. You know, like another example. I had my HR director. She's black, or was black. Dawn.
Dawn, yeah, I know Dawn.
I was going to go target shooting that day, and so I had an AR-15 in the back seat of my car. And we were going to go to lunch. It was like her second day there, and she hops in my car and sees this loaded AR-15 in the back seat, and she flips. Like, I can't ride with you. I go, what are you talking about? She goes, I cannot ride with you. Why? She goes, you can't drive around with that in the back seat of the car. I said, well, you feel better if I put it in the trunk? I mean, what And so it never even occurred to me that would be an issue with me driving around with a loaded AR-15 in the back seat.
And I'm licensed to carry. Yeah, and I get it makes me really, like, I'm legal to carry it, and I'm talking about I feel illegal anytime I pass by an officer but that's the privilege. Like you said, you don't have to worry about.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. We, you know, you're asking me how do we deal with this, right? The very first thing is that we have to start talking about the truth.
Yeah. And
trying to push the preconceived notions that both sides walk into these situations with, and push those to the side and look for what really happened. What is the cause of all of these things, right? What is causing these things to happen? You know, for most people on the right and conservatives, we start quoting statistics, right? We start talking about how, you know, black people are 14% of the population, commit 49% of the crimes, you know, and we say all these things. And
it makes it feel good about
But we never come out and say why we're saying
yeah, what the truth is about those statistics.
Right. And we say that, but we never come out and go, you know, this is reality, right? I'm not going to tell you why I'm saying this, but, you know, because I can't say that because that would be racist.
Right.
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 But what is the point of saying something like that?
To excuse your racism or
Well, no,
excuse
it's
the
just-
feeling,
yeah.
or like you want to feel like you're okay.
This,
So
this proves that what I
Yeah.
think about black people is right.
because I love it when, well, I don't love it, but it's always interesting when people go, well, black on black crime or white officers and white. Like, I understand that, but we're talking about the justice and the injustice. It's easy to say, like you said earlier, well, more white people are killed by cops than it is black.
Mm-hmm.
Well, right, because 74% of the population is white and 14% of the population is black. But that's not the underlying issue in my mind. The issue is there is no justice for those acts.
Right.
Even regardless of what the criminal or the non-criminal did, should it have cost his life by the person who was supposed to protect and serve? Or should I have to defend something I didn't do? Or why is this an issue? Partially because it's only an issue for non-whites.
Right. And so, like I said, the first thing we have to do is we have to have an honest conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That's part 1A.
Mm-hmm.
1B is that it actually has to be a conversation.
Yeah.
Right?
We
You
have
can't-
to agree with what the problem is.
No, you have to seriously have a conversation.
Yeah.
Right now, all we're having is people yelling at us.
Yelling. Mm-hmm.
Everybody's shouting down, and if you disagree with anything that they're saying, just like what happened to me, well, I mean, we never even got to that story.
Just like the debate, but we'll get there.
Yeah, we never even made it to that story.
We didn't
Like,
get to the policy.
We were talking on Facebook, and when George Floyd died in up in Missouri, of course, anybody who looks at the picture or the video of that police officer with his knee on that man's neck, you couldn't help but be horrified, right? And all I said was, you have to give these police officers due process. The question, why are they not already in jail? It's like this happened 2 days ago, right? There's a process that you have to go through, especially with police officers. And it wasn't that I wanted justice for George Floyd, it's that I'm protecting police officers because they're white and I'm racist. And that's how it came out.
So it just stayed surface, and nobody wanted to hear
of course.
what the information.
Because if you don't follow the due process and these guys get this case dismissed on some technicality, then you're proven right that the system's against black people. It's like, well, why don't you let the system work itself out here and give these guys due process?
So it sounds like what we always talk about. Most people are interested in being right, not getting it right.
Yeah, and that's the truth.
Because if we don't,
Well, they're more interested in thinking they're right.
yeah, trying to be right. So how do we get past that?
So 1A is we have to have an honest conversation. 1B is that it has to actually be a conversation, right? It can't be one side yelling and shouting down the other. Everybody has to be able to get their opinion out, because the only way you figure out you're wrong is when somebody shows you you're wrong.
But you gotta be able to see it.
But if that never happens to you in your life, then you're never ever nobody ever tells you you're wrong. That's the beautiful thing about being a Marine. Is in the Marine Corps, they're not shy about telling you when you're wrong or when you're stupid.
Right.
Yeah. That's a normal, everyday thing. Right?
We are here with Eric Little. We are here on Beyond the Noise. Round face Mexican girl. What you got over there?
I have a few comments, not any questions,
Okay.
but Miss Sherry Peace chimed in earlier.
Miss Sherry.
And, has put the privileges that you never have to have the conversation with your children.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Browder.
Shout out to Jim. Big U,
Now that I
Mississippi.
think about it, he's right. I never really think about life in terms of race. Talking about how middle class white people don't really
You
think
think
about
about
race.
the American dream.
Yeah.
And then Yonina Robinson has
Mhm.
put the privilege extends beyond the police. It also happens with employment and healthcare. Black people with exotic or ethnic names have to decide which name or nickname to use on job applications.
That's true.
Black women have to change their hairstyles for job interviews. Black people ailments are not taken seriously at the doctor's office. On several occasions, I've heard healthcare professionals laughing behind the door or behind the curtain at my health issue.
Well, that's terrible.
Yeah, I can't comment on that. 'Cause that's not my realm, but I can tell you as a person who hires people, that's absolutely true. And it's not just true for black people. If a girl is applying for a project management position that starts out at $120,000 a year and her name's Bambi, she's probably not getting past the resume stage. And it's just like you said, you walk into these things with these inherent biases.
Right.
Right, and the cool thing is the times that I've ignored that bias that I've had, I've ended up hiring two of the best employees that I've ever had.
Right, and I wanna bring the bias clear. There is like the ethnic name. This is so much truth. So whenever you got somebody named Strange Isha, all right.
Yeah.
So automatically it's, oh man, that's ghetto. So now regardless of what kind of person she is, she's attached to being ghetto, and now she's incompetent. She's all the things that won't allow her to get the job. So that makes so much sense. But part of that, black people call it being, here's the truth to everybody, white on paper.
Mm-hmm.
So because there's an understanding that if I can get a chance to not let the color stop me from getting the interview, I got a chance to get the job.
Right.
That's white privilege.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not about what you do individually, it's about what's afforded to you systemically.
What I'm trying to say to you is
Mhm.
that it's the same. If somebody's applying for that a professional position like that, he puts his name as Bubba.
Yeah, he's not getting that job.
That's just reality. You put a position out there and you might get 700 resumes, and so you have to have a system to get through those quickly. And sometimes your internal bias is going to guide that. It just
So basically, what we're saying, internal biases, you need them because they protect you. Here's the
Right.
truth. I mean, you're surrounded by, wolves, and you're a sheep. You might want to have a bad feeling about where you are, but they shouldn't be based in color. And that's why white people don't understand it, because their life is not based in color, it's based in opportunity or lack thereof.
Right.
So when you see black people taking an opportunity that you think all people should have gotten, it's now anger towards the black person, when the only reason that program exists is because trying to have an equal opportunity.
Right.
So it is literally push-pull, the double-edged sword.
Yeah, and I think that, like I said, this is 1B. Let's have an honest conversation about this. The problem that I have from a political standpoint is absolutely everybody should have an equal opportunity, right? Everybody should have, and there's nobody in the world that, well, there's probably some, but most people believe that you should have an equal opportunity. The problem is when
Equality of outcome.
yeah, when you're dictating quality of outcome, and that's when you start getting in trouble. Like you start going into companies and you start saying that how come you didn't promote X number of minorities into certain positions, right? Well, maybe in our company it just wasn't somebody that was qualified, right? I mean, are there biases and racism that happens within the corporate America that keeps it from happening? I'm sure there are. But if you're doing that nowadays, you're an idiot.
Right.
You're stupid. You're going to be out of business.
Yeah.
Like if capitalism promotes the idea
Moving
of
upward.
of promoting the competent, right, and removing the incompetent.
Yep.
If you're in business and you're removing the incompetent or promoting the incompetent and removing the competent, you're going to be out of business very quickly.
Right.
The market's going to respond to that.
However, you still have, and part of it is because it's the numbers too. I say that all the time, and so when you do have a qualified person, Mexican, Black, Asian, it doesn't matter. You're going to be comfortable with the one that's more comfortable around you, or the numerical. So if I got 5 white people and 1 black dude going out for the same job, the numbers are going to say there's a bigger opportunity for the white people than it is for the brother. But
By the numbers.
the truth is, because of that bias and because of that feel and look, if I came in and I didn't look like the other 5 in dress and talk or whatnot, it may push me. I may be the best for the job and have the best interview, but that might get glossed over because the color is a factor.
Yeah.
It's just not a factor to the hirer. He just doesn't. It sounds like not always. They do understand, they do realize, because you're looking at it company-wide. But if we're talking about common folk, we're talking about, hey, you know, I don't have a color issue because I'm not black. I don't understand what you're talking about because I've never been stopped from doing something because of my color.
Right.
That makes sense to me. So how do we go about fairness, and how do we go about justice, and how do we make sure that we at least have a say in it and not have to fight for what other people are saying?
Well, like I said, we have to, part 2 is we have to push for equality of opportunity, but we have to understand that there's never going to be equal outcome. There's no way.
I don't even like equality of outcome.
Well, it's impossible, right? And you start talking about the gender pay gap and these kind of things, and you start making up statistics that men are paid more than women when the reality is it's not true. It's about a 1% difference when you start taking out all the outside factors, right? Because if that was the case, if women were paid less than men, then I would have nothing but women working for me. It would be strategically, as a capitalist, as a business owner, that would make more sense to me if I could get the same
Because
outcome and pay somebody a lot less. Why wouldn't I do that? It would be dumb not to do that.
Profitability goes to the roof.
And so it just doesn't make sense. It's not reality.
Mm-hmm.
People doing the same job, at least within my company, they get paid the same. I'm not paying a woman less than I'm paying a man for doing the same job. It just doesn't happen.
Right. Almost like the soccer when they wanted equal pay, and I started doing the numbers, and I made a comment.
It doesn't make sense. It's like the WNBA making the same as the NBA. Well, they're generating billions of dollars of revenue. You're not generating anything. And I love the WNBA.
Me too.
I've taken my daughter to the games.
Mm-hmm.
But
if I pay you the same, the WNBA lasts 24 months. They will be out of money.
But on the other side of that, there are women's sports that generate a lot more money than men. The men are doing the same sport, gymnastics.
So the equality should be in the percentage. Well, I'm just saying, like, if we're talking about
the market should determine what you get paid.
Right, and that's based in the percentage of what you're bringing in versus like of your league, not based on what other people have and what they're getting paid.
And that's my problem with it, is the racist and the leftists are two sides of the same coin. They're both trying to manipulate the market to get what they want.
And so are the anytime you're extreme on either side, there is no common.
And that's our problem today.
Yeah, I mean,
is the extremists are the ones that are making all the noise and making all the news, and the people in the middle are caught. And reality right now, if you're watching television and you're watching reporting, there's no way that me and you or Gracie should be friends.
Right,
Yeah.
you're right about that.
There's no way we should ever be friends.
Because we're so divisive and so divided.
Well, and we should never even be able to have these kind of difficult conversations, right? Because I'm white.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're black.
I've been black for 41 years, at least that's what I've been told. I look in the mirror and I kind of like it, so it's all good, all good. I think, man, you gave me some real good info, but I've never once thought about that you don't think about race.
No, it doesn't.
I think that is literally that's the root of it all. If it doesn't make sense because it's not. It doesn't make sense to you.
Part of our fabric.
Yeah.
It's not until it is, right? And right now, that's why people have been so uncomfortable over the last, few months with all of these things that are happening.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the sad part about it, is that after George Floyd, we had a real opportunity
to have a real conversation about what's
and to have
really
some
going
real
on.
Racial healing happening in this country, and people on both sides.
Tighten eyes real close.
They took it and they ripped that completely apart, and they eliminated any opportunity for us to try to move forward right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because anytime, like, as a conservative or libertarian, if I say something that's not exactly the whole woke white person perception of what's going on, then I'm automatically a racist. Mm-hmm. And the same thing on the when I'm talking to my conservative friends.
And you pro-black, if you say you give a comment saying, "Hey, you shouldn't have did that," then you're not for the. You're not
then
American.
You're a liberal. Then
you're not American. Yeah,
you're a communist. And so both sides pulling against the middle, and it's ripped up that's a sad part about it. It's going to have to come to our kids to solve it.
So that's what I said. So before we get out of here, I gotta ask this: the whole Colin Kaepernick deal with you in the United States military, serving for 6 years, being all across the world. When you saw what happened, not all the aftermath, but his explanation of taking the knee, what he said on TV. What were your initial thoughts of that?
I was angry.
Why is that?
Because I was taught and conditioned that when the national anthem is playing, you stand up and you respect that. You respect the opportunity that you've been given, because I've seen the rest of the world.
Right. That's why
I know that we think that things are really bad here in the United States, but go to Africa, go to Somalia, go to Colombia back in the 1990s. It's places in the world that where I sit there and watched. You sit there and watch children shooting each other, right? And to me, it's like you live a privileged life. There's better ways, less divisive ways to bring these issues up than to insult people. And that's what it was to me. It was an insult. But I didn't understand what he was doing.
So now, how do you feel about it?
I don't care because I don't watch the internet. No, I'm just kidding. No, I understood what he was doing. I still don't. I still think that number one, I think that the NFL made a mistake when they politicized the game to begin with, and they politicized it all the way to the right. Right? They had military flyovers, waving the flag in the middle of the field, singing the national anthem, all those things that they didn't do in the '80s. right? This is a new thing. This is not something that's been around since the NFL was founded. And so they,
all of it shouldn't even be part of it.
yeah, they should go back to what they used to do, and they sing the national anthem, but the players were in the locker room, and then they come out, right?
I know that because in college we were in the locker room.
Well, that's the thing, that you have these arguments with people. It's like, why are you politicizing the NFL? Well, it was politicized before, but it was on your side, so you didn't care.
Okay, and now we got like 2 minutes, so I'm gonna ask one more question.
Oh, I want to ask a question. You already asked the one.
Okay, we got 3 minutes, so she's gonna answer.
I guess it's kind of both for you guys. What do you think about people? You guys talked about white privilege earlier, about people who combat saying that they don't experience white privilege, and give examples like in education where there's scholarships given specifically to minorities. Well, what if we went and had a whites only scholarship fund? How would that look? Or
You
how would
did. That's how HBCUs came about. That's the truth.
I just want to know what you guys think, because people say that, and I've had people say things like that.
The only reason that things have a title of black or minority is because they weren't allowed to do those things. So we had to find a way to be allowed to do it. That is a fact. The only reason HBCUs exist is because we couldn't go to the other schools. So we had to go to school. And shout out to HBCU, shout out to Deion Sanders at Jackson State, the whole nine, because it's going to give
Paul Quinn College.
Yeah, it's going to give a chance for kids who, because they were black, they were denied. Affirmative action comes about because people were denied. These scholarships come about because there's an overwhelming amount of population of whites who take up the amount of places for school, and many of the other blacks or minorities are there to play a sport and make the school more money. That's not all of them, but at Ohio State, when you got 50,000 people, just go look up the percentage of minority, and then that will give you the answer of why those programs exist. So ask your fellow white friends and the ones who believe in segregation and things of that nature. And before I go, I also want to say, the reason I'm not a big fan of politics at all is because David Duke ran for president back in the day, and he was the grand wizard of the KKK, and he got votes. Am I lying about that?
No, he did.
He got votes. So why would I trust any of them? But that's just the way that
And
is.
it's on both sides.
Yes,
Robert
any
Byrd
one
was
of
a
them.
Grand Kleagle of the Ku Klux Klan. He was a minority leader, a majority leader of the Senate for the Democrats.
So why would I believe in any of them?
They're all the same. It's two sides of the same coin, honestly.
Yeah, they dance at the same parties and argue in front of us. So that's just the way it is.
That's it.
What are you gonna leave us with, brother? What do you think we can do today, just as the regular common folk, to have a chance to make sure that the lives that we ask for our kids are fair?
We need to reject the extremists on both sides, the right and the left. We have to reject all of that idiocy. We have to reject the racism that's coming from the alt-right, and we have to reject this communist kind of manifesto that's using the term racist to push a political agenda on the country. And we have to understand what's best for white people is also best for black people.
So we need to err on the side of logic.
What's best for black people is best for white people. The only difference between me and you, other than I'm better looking, is
Nice joke.
Okay.
is that you have more melanin in your skin. There's no other difference.
There's no difference. We still people.
And so that's we have to reject all of that stuff that's being used to tear against the middle, and reject both sides of that, and come together as Americans and do things to help each other.
Err on the side of logic.
Have to, and get rid of the stupidity.
Okay.
Shut down Facebook.
Man, I had a ball. I think you gave me some real great things, and I think some things that our audience should really pay attention to. If it's never been an issue in your life, it doesn't mean it's not an issue. And if you got friends where it is an issue, the best thing you can do is listen and come to some common ground. So with that being said, appreciate you guys being with us this evening. Glad to have my man Eric with us, and we will see you again next week on Beyond the Noise. Man.